During the dinner scene at Kamal Khan's palace, Bond asks, "At the risk of appearing to be making light dinner conversation, may I ask exactly why I'm here?" Why am I here was also the question that Roger Moore was asking himself before ultimately signing on to Octopussy. At 55 years old, Moore was becoming more and more out of place as the dashing and unstoppable British spy. However, a threat, coming in the form of another James Bond film, separate from the regular series, was also due to release in 1983, and this film would star original James Bond actor Sean Connery. The producers of Octopussy, while in the midst of recasting for the role of Bond, changed gears and decided that a bankable and recognizable face would be best to put head-to-head against Connery, and so Roger Moore was wooed into sticking around for another go of it. The film went on to make $187 million against its $27.5 million budget. Octopussy made less than the previous Bond film, For Your Eyes Only, but was still considered a hit. The rival Bond film, Never Say Never Again, made just $55 million that year. Returning for this film is 007 alum Maud Adams, this time in the titular role of Octopussy. She had previously starred in The Man with the Golden Gun as Andrea Anders. You're listening to Bondcast, James Bondcast. My name is Matt McGregor, and on this month's episode, my co-hosts Harris McCabe, Colin Shaw, and I will be dissecting Roger Moore's sixth outing as 007 James Bond in 1983's Octopussy. Here we are. Welcome to the show.
We're here.
Yay, welcome.
Yay.
Yes.
All right.
I'm excited.
Let's get right into it. We're talking about Octopussy. We got Roger Moore. We got Maud Adams back again.
As the titular Octopussy.
Yep. Titular.
Titular. We got a lot of titulars and Octopussies in this show.
Yeah.
Roger Moore, only 78 years old when he played James Bond here.
Yeah.
And I swear he looks 77.
How many gadgets can he hide in his wheelchair?
Grandpa Bond at it again.
They should do that. That would be great.
I mean, I feel like between this and Never Say Never Again, we have Grandpa Bond in a couple of different versions. And
Did
don't
they
forget
not realize that, like,
that
they
old
were
men
old?
should not
Yeah.
be playing this part? I don't know.
There's a word that comes to mind, distinguished. And as soon as you say that something is distinguished, you just throw out all the bad stuff that comes with being old.
Yeah, but you also throw out all the stuff of like being like athletic and cool and
I feel like
virile.
this paved way for like the late 80s action movies like Lethal Weapon and stuff. They got like young guys with long hair like as the heroes, and suddenly like older dudes were like, "Hey,
Yeah.
what's going on here?"
Well, Lethal Weapon, Leslie Nielsen, he's looked old since he was young.
I think you're thinking of Naked Gun, but they're similar movies in many ways.
Did I say Naked Gun or did I say...
You said Lethal Weapon.
Oh, yeah.
But that's, I mean, I don't believe Leslie Nielsen was in Lethal Weapon, but that would be a casting change that I would advocate. I'd say that.
I mean, I've heard stories.
Like,
he is a lethal weapon.
You just
Right.
swap Leslie Nielsen out for Mel Gibson and recast that entire movie. I think you got to hit anyways. You know?
But that's the whole point of Lethal Weapon. Danny Glover's old and he's young.
Too old. Yeah, he's
Exactly.
too old for this shit. Although, if you think about it, like Danny Glover was like, what, 32 or something when that movie came out? James Bond is definitely too old for this shit at this point. He is a very old man. And don't forget, he comes back for another one when he is in his late
3 years
50s.
later.
Yeah, late 50s.
Yeah. I will say though, like having said all this, that he's old, it didn't come across to me as much in this movie as it did in the previous movie. Like For Your Eyes Only, he felt super old.
Let me suggest one possible reason why that is. Because in the last movie, wasn't he hitting on like a teenager at one point or flirting with a teenager?
She wasn't actually a teenager.
This one, but she looked young. This one, they've actually aged up. Like the Bond girls that he has relationships with in this movie are in their 30s at least, which isn't great. But for this,
in this movie,
particular...
he was wooing a plastic skeleton.
But in this movie, he was wooing people who were a little closer to his age range. A decomposing corpse would probably be more spot on, but
yeah. No, I think it's. I mean, as much as we could, make fun of him, like if I look like that when I'm 55, I wouldn't have too much of a problem with it.
It's not about that he doesn't look good for a 55-year-old. It's about
that
when he pulls up at the beginning in that like horse trainer outfit. I'm like, this looks like the more plausible role for him, an elderly horse trainer, rather than an undercover spy. Like this makes more sense to me.
I did like when he put the fake mustache on.
Oh yeah,
I thought it was a good look for him.
Yeah, you know what else I thought? I thought it was great how when he was impersonating that general in Cuba or whatever it was supposed to be, how he went in disguise and he showed up at the base and he didn't immediately blurt out his fucking name. He's actually in his older age. He's learning. I expected him to show up and be like, "I'm General Bond, James Bond."
They did never actually say where that was supposed to be, but it did look very much like Cuba.
Yeah,
well, it had a sort of a Castro look-alike general there at some point. And
which is the only. I mean, it's kind of a that scene has nothing to do with the plot.
No,
it's like he's just supposed to be planting a bomb in an airplane hangar.
Cold open, yeah.
I love it's a good cold open.
Yes,
but it doesn't really fit.
Let's get into it. Let's talk about it. I also thought it was a good cold open.
Somebody explain what exactly happens in this good cold open.
All right, so he drives up and he's got a trailer with a horse in it, and then he gets out and then he meets a beautiful woman and she's like, "Hey, here's your cover," and then she slaps a mustache on him, pats him on the butt, and he walks into an airplane hangar in a military uniform. And he's like, "Hey, I'm like Santos or whatever." And he starts trying to
Toro.
Because he has a bull joke.
That sounds like a lot of bull or something like that.
There's a lot of bad jokes.
The humor in
this
movie is top notch.
There's some real groaners. Even for James Bond movies, there's some groaners.
So he walks in there and he just starts sneaking around. And he starts trying to plant a bomb, and then the real Toro walks in and they confront each other. And he's like, "Oh, well, we found your bomb."
They were waiting for him.
And then they start to take him away, and the hot woman drives up next to the car with the military guys in it, and she's like, "Hey, look at my boobs and legs," and they're like, "Wow, this is pretty cool."
She literally shows her. There's a lot of boobs in this one.
Yeah, and so the military guys are like, "Hey, this is pretty cool," and Bond's like, "Look over there, look over there."
And this one guy just won't look over.
Yeah, and then he pulls their parachutes, and they get sucked out of the Jeep, and then he jumps over to the other car, pulls a gun on the other guys, shoots the car. And then the horse trailer doesn't have a horse in it at all. It has a little jet plane.
It's got a fake horse ass.
Yes.
Yeah, a fake horse's ass that reveals a jet plane.
You ever see one of those I don't know what you call it, like a truck that carries horses, and the horses' butts are usually sticking out the back. So it's like the horse butt with the tail, and then it lifts up and reveals that it's fake, and then it opens up and a
little jet plane wheels out,
like a folded up jet plane comes out.
Of a horse's butt?
Basically,
yeah.
The horse shits
Oh, this
out.
jet plane is tiny, but it's pretty badass. It's
cool.
It's a really
small jet plane, but it's super
a jet
fast.
plane. It's not like an airplane that's tiny. It's not like the little gyrocopter that Connery. It's a freaking jet.
And it's fast in real life, and it looks fast on film.
And the sound effects are really good. even the close-ups of this, because then immediately he takes off in this jet and they launch a heat-seeking missile after him, and then he spends all his time evading the heat-seeking missile, and then he flies through the hangar that he was originally supposed to blow up and flies sideways because they're closing the door on the other side, and he barely gets through flying sideways, and the missile does not get through, and it blows up the hangar that he was supposed to bomb.
Mission
so he
accomplished.
accomplishes his mission.
He kills about 700 people.
Many of them who were just hanging out watching an air show. But he accomplishes his mission, and like even the close-ups, like the green screen or whatever the close-ups of the process close-ups of
Driving?
No,
Or
of
flying?
of him flying.
Yeah, him in the
look
cockpit,
pretty
right?
good. They
Yeah.
blend it. They integrate it really well, and with the sound design and everything, I thought it was pretty impressive flying scenes.
It's a good scene. Like it just doesn't like fit with the rest of the plot.
And then he runs out of gas, and he
And
has to
then
land
he
the
does
plane. And
another
he pulls up
stupid
to a
joke,
gas
too.
station, and he says, "Fill her up, please," which is apparently a gag that was not in the movie. And then they threw it. They got all this extra footage to do previews, and the director John Glenn saw one of these trailers play in the theaters, and they had that line in it, and it got such a big laugh. He was like, "Shit, we got to put that back in the movie." So they put the line in. It's a good cold open. It's I would rank it up
almost
pretty
like,
high.
Wile E. Coyote-ish. I got like a Looney Tunes sense with like the heat-seeking missile like chasing him, and then he flies it into
Yeah.
them, and they're like, "No!" And they blow
yeah,
up.
I thought it was cool. I think the joke about filling the thing up, like this one's too jokey. This one crosses.
This is
the
where you
line.
draw the line.
Yeah, this-
because I was curious.
I think you should hate this one because like where you think Moonraker was bad, this one is like bad in the same way, but like it worked for me.
Well, what's strange about this one is like it's a pretty serious plot and like a good intricate one, I thought, and like
Yeah.
there were a lot of different and cool things that we haven't seen happen before. But like interspersed throughout the movie is this like silly shit. Like they're dressing him up as a clown, and
so many costume changes.
Well, I'm really excited
ridiculous,
that you guys are
unrealistic
finally coming around to how absurd this series has gotten in this era, and actually docking it some points for that. I am troubled by the fact that you think this is an interesting, intricate plot that's really well put together.
I do
I'm gonna
like
have some
the-
things to say about that, but I'm encouraged by the fact that we're at least moving towards admitting that this is totally campy and ridiculous at this point.
I do like the plot, but I don't think it's treated well because the characters are not developed. You have to like really be paying attention to like see like that these are really like interesting, complex characters.
I will admit
But
I
we
had
ju-
no
yeah.
idea what was going on
Yeah.
until like the very end.
This
when
is
I-
why this is my main argument with the plot. I only understood it in retrospect, so I couldn't like anticipate anything or look forward to anything or even know what the hell anybody was doing and what the reason was
Yeah.
until after it was already done. Then I was like, oh, I guess he was that because of this. Oh, I guess this person was in charge of that person, and this guy was helping him because of this.
Right.
But
Right. So like yeah, especially because okay, you get the Russian general. The Russian general is like the real bad guy. He's like
from the get-go.
yeah, he's the real bad guy. And he has a really great scene in the beginning where he's with like he's in the Russian war room and he just like goes on a rant. We have so many tanks, we could just go in there.
It reminded
like
me
the
of the,
Soviet Union doesn't want to do that.
It reminded me of like the George C. Scott scene in Dr. Strangelove when he's like talking about how they should just commit their bombers to blowing up Russia, and he gets all excited
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
Gets all fired up. He's like, but that's a comedy. This guy is like way over the top, chewing scenery, his absurd Russian accent, like that
It's
is so
awesome.
over the top.
It's one of the best scenes in the movie.
I love the
And
Russian
set,
war room.
too. I really love that.
I love the Russian
amazing.
war room, but that is a comedic scene, and see even that kind of comedy I could even handle, like a little bit of an over the top bad guy.
Dude,
but
that guy's so intense. Like the way his eyes are bulging out of his head when he's just saying the number of tanks that they have.
who is that guy? His name is Steven Burkoff. He plays this Putin-esque war hawk named General Orlov. It is so hammy and over the top. Just in case, this guy has like a classic bad guy face. He's got like a knot in the middle of his forehead.
Definitely.
He's got a classic bad guy face, and you may recognize him from Rambo: First Blood Part 2, where he played another evil Russian guy, and he also played Victor Maitland in Beverly Hills Cop, who was the big bad guy in Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, I
In the
remember
first
that.
one?
Yeah, both of which are probably better movies than Octopussy. But
Oh wow,
Bold statement.
I'm sticking to it.
Beverly Hills Cop is pretty good.
It is.
What was the other one you said? Rambo.
First
Rambo
Blood 2, which was
Also
like the
very
least of the best of the bad Rambo sequels.
Yes.
Okay,
Written by James Cameron.
I didn't know that. Yeah, but this guy really he nails it in that scene. If he
In
whatever
Colin's opinion.
if
Call it over the top, but I don't think it was bad. I don't think any of the performances in this movie
the
were
fact that it was-
particularly bad.
That's
that
a
I could
bold
think
call.
of.
Yeah, I actually thought
Strong disagree.
I actually think Maud Adams is not that great at playing the role of Octopussy. Like she has like a backstory and everything, and she's just like saying the lines.
You know, I don't know. I don't know how much we blame Maud Adams for that, and how much you just blame sort of an underwritten role. I felt like they were trying to do like a Pussy Galore thing with her character, like sort of mimicking that same kind of
By
character.
putting pussy in her name.
But yeah, but she doesn't. But she doesn't have the like the charisma of Honor Blackman, and just doesn't. She just doesn't bring it. I thought her backstory, that the story that she tells, is way more interesting than anything about the character.
Well, that's what they actually took from. That's how they linked it to the story, like the short story by Ian Fleming. It's like they wrote the script and they're like, well, that's not what the short story is about. And then they rewrote the script to be like, well, she's actually the daughter of the guy in the Octopussy short story. And that is a really cool character. But like I was saying before, this has a cool plot and cool characters, but it's confusing the way it comes across. You don't understand what's going on in the plot, and then you also don't get enough exposition of the characters to like really flesh them out.
If you explained the plot to somebody, they'd be like, "Oh, that sounds cool." But if you actually made them watch the movie, they'd be like, "What the hell am I watching?"
Exactly. Yeah. Precisely.
Well, yeah, I watched it with my wife last night, and she just kept asking me questions. Wait, who is that guy? What's going on, or whatever? And I had guesses, but I didn't have like confirmed answers.
Yeah, but on paper, the story is really cool. It's like, you know, like you've got this villain and you've got this like under villain, and then you've got this other maybe villainous woman with like an island of women and like.
But you
all
have
this
all
other
these
stuff.
different, like they're all doing different things, and you never know why any of them are doing any of it. Like we hear that this Russian guy wants to start a war, and he wants Russia to like back out of NATO, and
We don't see him
fight
again for
everyone.
another hour.
Yeah, exactly. And then meanwhile, we have the smuggled Fabergé egg that has something to do with him, and also this Indian guy is trying to buy it, but this Indian guy is normally. It's like just it's very strange, very bizarre.
That's a cool subplot, the whole Fabergé egg thing.
It's
really
all very
cool,
cool, but I don't know
it
what
takes
the hell
too
anything
long
has
for
to
us
do with
to
anything.
for us to
it's
get to
crazy.
how from there to a plan to cause World War III basically.
You want to? We've talked about the cold open a little. You want to jump ahead to the main titles and theme song?
Yeah,
Should
sure.
we cover this? Let's just get the titles out of the way. They're by Maurice Binder again. They are sort of a variation on the standard theme of naked silhouettes. They've got some very racy costumes where you see a lot of nip.
It's like ballroom dancing too.
There's a high-tech laser show. There's some very fancy
lasers.
dancing. And my favorite part was when the women are wrapping their arms around Bond, and he's got like 8 arms, women's arms with guns wrapping around him. I thought that was pretty cool.
Good.
I thought it was like for taking the same old idea and injecting some new ideas into it. I thought the titles were okay. They were really hampered by
The song. The
song
song
that you
is
had to
so
listen
bad
to.
that the titles are hard to watch.
Maybe it was the song, but my note was, despite the amount of nips that I'm looking at, I'm not pleased with this. The title sequence was like, for me, I usually like them a lot, but this one just felt like slapped together. I thought a lot of like, yeah, there's lasers like coming out of the guns, but they didn't like, they're doing it with optical, effects, and they didn't like line the lasers up perfectly so that you kind of see them like move.
And there was no to my recollection, there was no pew pew noises coming from the laser,
which is really, I mean, you need that when you have
hot
some
off
lasers.
that like Acme Looney Tunes like cold open. I want to hear pew pew when I see some lasers.
obviously.
Maybe this will go to like my general theme of this movie of them like just kind of phoning everything in. It seems like they've got their formula and they just didn't try hard to do anything beyond that. They're just kind of like thinking of and we've already talked about how the Bond movies are kind of repeating themselves a little bit in many ways, but this one is totally just everything has been done before, and it's just a lesser variation of stuff they've done before, except for their main innovations, which are making it goofier and stupider.
Yeah. Well, I think it is. I think it had a good story with cool characters, but they didn't focus on that. They just focused on keeping the action sequences like in that story. You know what I mean? Like we still have to get him like being chased around a lot.
Yep.
And in between having this good story and having to have all the chases and action and stunts and stuff, we lose something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I got us off topic again. We haven't even talked about. Should we even bother talking about All Time High? Is it better just to leave it alone and
It's
let
a
it
bad
die?
song. We all
It's
agree.
an all-time low.
it is.
I mean, it's like one of the most boring,
Chris,
forgettable.
C-Rock, thank you so much for making a cool
Improving
song
it.
out of it.
I did like it, yeah.
Yeah.
What was it?
I like you left like that part that's like just a very like straightforward sample in the beginning, and for a second I thought you were gonna like troll us. And it would just be
Make us listen to the actual song.
just a recording of the song that you like. that you recorded with another microphone, and then you sent
fading out,
it
you
to
just hear,
us.
for real, C-Rock?
For a second, I thought you were gonna do that. I was like, "Oh no, he didn't."
No, I mean it is.
Don't give him any ideas.
It's
Rickroll.
Yeah.
It's the worst. It's the worst song outside of maybe the From Russia with Love song, which I don't even remember. That was pretty terrible.
It
too.
didn't really have one.
Well, it did. It just they didn't use it at the as the
It was
opening
just like an
theme.
overture.
It was so bad that they didn't use it as the opening theme.
Moonraker
was bad. There's
yeah.
a lot. There have been a few. This is really like you said. This is really
This is the
One
all-time
is
low.
The all-time
and we're
low.
jumping all over Rita Coolidge, who had a great success with this song.
Oh yeah, this song charted.
Yeah, if you told me it charted, I'd believe you. Charted seems a little more far fetched. Yeah, it is. It is a bomb with a capital B. This is not a good song. Do not listen to it. Listen to the C-Rock remix.
I think this song marks the end, even though we're in the 80s already, I think it marks the end of like the 70s like love song kind of ballads, and with the next movie
We dance into the fire
we
a little
dance
bit
into
more.
the fire. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that one.
it's a
I
good
can't
one.
wait.
Yeah, did you feel the 80s like come on in this one? Like I felt like I was in an 80s movie, I think, finally. Even though the last one was 81.
Yeah.
But like
I don't know. This one still felt like, he's got his bell bottom still in the
Yeah, the
gun
hair
barrel.
is and just
but there's something about like I don't know.
India harem pants.
When-
it still felt very 70s. to
sitar
me.
music
Yeah.
like reminds me of like the Beatles in the 70s.
Yeah,
or
that's
something.
true.
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt like he's
I mean,
he's
what-
getting there.
What was particularly
Listen,
80s
it was made in
about
the
it?
80s, so I can't contest the idea that this has 80s elements.
Oh,
in it.
you know what was the
There was no
Cold
cocaine.
War being like a huge
That-
this is the most Cold War of any of the movies, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As far
I
as
mean,
like the
this-
Cold War is always like a plot point, but like
But
this
they
is
actually
like
are at Checkpoint Charlie in
Yeah.
Germany, and
and this one like the evil villain's plan is more to just like turn the Cold War into a real war,
Right.
right,
basically.
He-
Like which
yeah,
is
he talks
also
about nuclear superiority,
which is
and all
also
these other
the
things.
plan of like some of the other bad guys, but that's more like they're trying to get like West and East to annihilate each other. This guy is like still with the Soviets, but he just really wants to go to war real bad.
I thought this movie did a good job of taking, rather than doing like a world domination, like ludicrous plot or like a
megalomaniac.
a megalomaniac is not like driving the
Yeah.
plot. They've kind of scaled back, much like For Your Eyes Only, to make it this sort of like jewel heist kind of plot.
Yeah.
But it's wrapped in a megalomaniac plot.
Well,
the
like I
reason
feel
they're
like this
doing
guy's a
that-
megalomaniac. He's just at like stage one. Like,
Yeah.
He's like, as soon as I, invade like the rest of Germany and the Netherlands, then I'll be like such a high up general in the USSR that I'll then be able to like stage two, where I become the dominant ruler
But
of the
in
world.
order to do that, I have to sell Fabergé eggs, or I have to auction off Fabergé eggs one at a time.
Right? Yeah. I have
Yeah,
to-
and everyone, just this is actually the way this thing goes, which is why it is so confounding. Like, what the hell? What the hell is this guy's plan again? I don't even know. And of course, he's so good. Like every bad guy in this movie is a total clod. None of them can execute any of their plans. He gets
Yeah.
machine gunned to death in Germany by people that are supposed to be sympathetic to his cause.
There's a lot of like big
Soviet
bad
soldiers.
guy deaths that are letdowns in this movie.
Oh yeah, I mean they all are, because that's like he's like he's the biggest bad. He's like the mastermind behind this whole thing and the megalomaniac, and he dies like 3/4 of the way through the movie. Spoiler alert! And in the most pointless, dumb way. I still don't even know why he's running after the train there. It doesn't make any damn sense to me. So it's like, I mean,
because he has to stop Bond.
But does he personally have to stop Bond? When he's dying, he doesn't seem convinced that Bond's going to stop the bomb. He's like, well, I'll be a hero tomorrow. So clearly, yeah, you'll be a hero tomorrow post-mortem, but what did you get yourself shot chasing after a train?
It's not like
dummies?
now where he could just text, Kamal, like, hey, Bond is trying to defuse the nuke. Make sure the nuke nukes.
But also, getting machine gunned to death running across the most dangerous line of demarcation in the world.
He was a passionate man. We
Yeah,
saw
he
it in
was.
scene one.
He certainly
Now,
was.
before we get too deep into the plot, I think we have to have Colin summarize the plot.
Colin,
in 2
explain this
minutes.
motherfucker for us.
Okay.
please.
Hold on, we got the music queued up.
Here we go.
He's turned his baseball cap around backwards like Sylvester Stallone in Over the Top.
Much like this movie.
Right. Okay. So we already discussed the cold open. Bond, bombs the Cubans, and he has to get out of there. So then we see that there's a guy in a clown suit, and this guy gets murdered by a knife-throwing man. What the hell? We find out he's 009. He dropped a Fabergé egg, and it's a fake. So we got to find out what to do. Bond's going to go to the auction. He's going to switch the Fabergé egg and then see who the buyer is. Then he's going to follow the buyer. He follows him to India. It's Kamal Khan. Seems like a pretty bad guy. He's got a big henchman. He's like a great Kali type of henchman. He's a big ass Indian dude. Then he decides, I'm going to taunt him. So then they capture him, and they're like, what do we do with him? And we find out there's this woman named Octopussy who has an island full of women. Then Bond breaks out, and he ends up going to, her place, and he's like, hey, what's up? In the meantime, he, sleeps with, a woman henchman, and, she steals the egg. Let's see here. What happens next? Then he finds out that the plan is part of a jewelry heist operation in which Octopussy, the woman with the island full of women, has a circus, and as that circus tours Europe, they're going to do something with the circus. Bond then goes to East Germany and finds out they're putting a nuke in the circus train, and then they're going to nuke the circus when it gets to the American military base, because there's a Russian general who has a plan to make an American nuke go off so that they denuclearize in the West, and he can just run up in there with tanks and take over most of Europe because he likes tanks and war, and he's got caught up in this jewelry heist thing, and Bond's got to stop him, and Bond dressed up like a clown, and he defuses the weapon. Then he goes after Kamal Khan, and they kill him.
Wow.
Nailed it. That actually made so much more sense when Colin explained it than it did when I watched the movie live.
Did you feel my pain from when I had to say that Bond dresses like a
dressed
clown?
up like a clown to defuse a nuclear weapon? That was easily one of the lowest point in any Bond movie.
Was it that or when he was just like a bear?
That's a gorilla.
A gorilla, yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
So many costumes. He has the red shirt, knife throwing costume.
What?
Yeah, he dresses in a lot
How
of
about
costumes.
the two girls, the thing 1 and thing 2, I was calling them?
Oh, those are acrobat
What
costumes.
the fuck? They're wearing bright red, skin tight camel toe to the max costume.
In Octopussy's circus, the acrobats wear that because it's entertainment.
But we hadn't seen a circus.
No,
at
they
that
were just
point.
randomly at her place.
No, we did
where
not know they were
all
circus
the other
performers.
girls are dressed up like harem girls, which I don't know if that's cultural appropriation if the white girls have to dress up as harem girls for work, but it made me uncomfortable.
I don't know how much of this movie represents actual Indian culture and how much of it is an overblown stereotype of
Yeah,
what
You
it's
said
very-
goes
Kamal
on.
there's
Khan is
very
a big
some-
Indian man.
some
I think
real-
No, Kamal
Aladdin
Khan
stuff.
is the boss, but he's got an big Indian.
yeah.
That's the henchman
Gobinda.
guy. Gobinda, yeah.
Gobinda, yeah.
When I see him, I think Great Khali, which was like a WWF guy.
Yeah, I think of the guy from Annie.
I actually think the Great Khali would have been better in the role, but that wouldn't have been able to happen.
Well,
because
Gobinda is basically the old trope of the Bond henchman who's just like a giant guy, except instead of having metal teeth or bleach blonde hair,
He had a
he's got a turban.
He's a turban,
and a
yeah.
blunderbuss, which I thought was
Oh,
pretty
yeah,
cool.
what the hell is that?
That was pretty cool. He walked around with a tiny mini blunderbuss, which was
What's a
awesome.
Blunderbuss?
It's like
It's
one of those
like
Elmer
that-
Fudd shotguns.
yeah, it's the gun with the
that's
horn.
right.
Yeah,
It was pretty cool.
You
yeah.
pretty much only used it in that one scene, right?
I know. It
Yeah,
was
but-
lame how underused that was. That could have been a very iconic.
he
iconic
should have
weapon
had
That
it
was
in his
like
hand
all the
every
time.
scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just walking around.
Or how about that guy with that saw thing, the like
Oh,
yo-yo.
the yo-yo
Yeah.
circular saw.
Yes,
Yeah.
he was part of the band of Indian assassins that Kamal Khan hires to kill Bond. But when Octopussy tells him he can't kill Bond, he's not allowed to.
Right.
And he hires these Indian assassins, and one of them has a like spinning circular saw blade yo-yo, and that guy looks just like Pedro Martinez when he retired from baseball and got kind of fat.
I didn't think of that, but now I totally see it.
And it's also like the least effective assassination weapon ever because it can only be used from the second floor of a building.
Yeah.
So you have to. So like he can only use it when there's like a room, but all the rooms happen to have like balcony floors on them everywhere he goes. It looks pretty badass. But also when they hire him to kill Bond, they put a picture of Bond down on the table, and he immediately drops the saw and saws it in half. And I was like, holy shit! I hope everyone got a good look at that thing.
Yeah, they didn't give it enough time to like.
They're like, oh damn it, that was our only picture.
He's a white guy. We'll find him.
Do you have another picture? We did not see it. Yo-yo saw is very excited.
Yo-yo saw. That's the name. Yo-yo saw.
Pedro Yo-yo saw.
Yeah, it was something.
Man.
He's bringing the change up.
Can we talk about? So I just wanted to. When you talked about the actors before, I think Maud Adams probably not great. I agree that a lot of them were really good. I loved the guy who played VJ. And the two, like he's got two buddies that are from the Indian branch of the Secret Service.
The guy who played VJ was just like a popular tennis player who wanted to break into acting.
And he was good. He was very
good.
very charismatic. I was very sad when he bit it.
Who was the guy in Dr. No with the red shirt again? Who died? Our favorite henchman, Bond friend.
Coral.
Coral. VJ was the Coral of this movie.
He's Coral-esque. Yeah, he's definitely
he was
got
good.
that certain je ne sais quoi. But I want to point out the performance that is my the worst performance in this movie.
Can I guess?
Yeah, please do.
So you've already ruled out VJ.
It's the big Indian guy?
Wait, let me think.
The knife thrower guy.
How many guesses are you going to do?
How about
No, you're still wrong.
As many until he guesses.
the first Bond girl? The
Magda,
Magda.
the one with the 5 head.
It's not her.
Yes, she was terrible.
She's better than Maud.
I mean, she struggled from the first lines. I was like, oh god, this is going to be a rocky road, and she did not get better.
Actually,
When
I
she-
think
I
her
love when she
performance is
said-
confusing, but I like to interpret it as like that's because it's a complex character.
not just because she had trouble reading the lines off the giant cue cards they were holding behind the camera.
She also there's one part when when they're actually at the circus and they're sitting next to like the Air Force generals or whatever. There's some very obvious like voiceover of or like ADR, and it's just really bad.
Of her?
Yeah, but it sounds really clear, but it's like it's so clear that it's like obvious that it's ADR.
Oh,
and
when it's like she's stealing the guy's wallet.
yeah,
as
she's
like a joke.
How long
Yeah.
would I get in the brig if I stole your wallet? And then the Air Force, why is he? Was he a good performance to you?
Oh no, he was terrible too. But he was a small performance. She's got a huge part,
Right.
And especially at the beginning, I was like cringing every time she opened her mouth. Her little dress thing that she does to escape is pretty cool. That's a good gag.
But any Air Force general who like is that impressed by like simple circus stuff is a liability to our fucking defense system.
That is true. That is true. The way they sneak this nuclear weapon onto the base is they invite the general to the circus. And he's like, "Ooh, clowns! Yay!"
Losing his shit on this circus.
Oh, cannons! I love
She
cannons.
steals his wallet in front of the military
He's
base.
He's like, good show.
He is-
Steal it again.
That's just like I think that's just the British idea of our American military might is our generals are just like, I just want horses and elephants and clowns.
Yeah, maybe.
Did you guys recognize? So there was like the American general character, and then there were like two other guys sitting with him.
Mm-hmm.
One of the guys was so familiar to me. Do you know? Did you guys happen to spot him?
No.
They all look like the same guy to me.
Oh,
Yeah, no, I
man,
didn't.
I'll have to
Just
look it up.
uniforms.
He had a really recognizable face.
On the next episode of Bondcast, James
We'll
Bondcast, Matt
fill you
will have
guys
done his
in.
homework and let you know who that guy.
How did you guys feel about the gag where they're playing backgammon and Kamal Khan has loaded dice, and then Bond steals the dice and uses them to beat Kamal Khan? So then the turban guy picks up the dice and crushes them into dust in his hand.
I have two thoughts on this. One is that I liked this gag so much better than James Bond just winning at the game because he's luckier. Is that he actually like had a reason why he won? Because usually he just
Yeah.
plays a card game and he just gets better cards and he's like, ooh, happens every time. This time he's like spots a guy who's cheating. For some reason he's the only guy in this freaking casino who spots this guy very obviously cheating and he uses it against him. I also thought it was kind of a funny thing to have this guy crush
Yeah.
the dice in his hand. Although I'm pretty sure that's absolutely impossible. Like
It is
in any
impossible.
way whatsoever. I just don't think you get the leverage. It's like trying to open a walnut in your hand.
Well, they wouldn't turn to like dust either. They'd just break into like maybe 8 pieces or something.
Also, if they're loaded dice, wouldn't there be a big piece of lead in it? And then, like
Yeah.
he breaks it into dust, and everyone's
Yeah.
like, "Wait a minute, you were cheating."
Something was going on there. But like, yeah, it seems like a cool gag, but when it happens, it's comical.
I found him.
It's
it was,
funny.
It was this guy. He's in Star Wars: A New Hope.
Oh,
He's the guy who I think
That
Darth
guy
Vader
was-
chokes out, or
yeah. He's
Oh,
like
yeah,
the
background
Grand
guy
Moff,
in-
Grand Moff Tarkin's
No,
underboss.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Exactly.
yeah,
He's like his
exactly.
assistant,
yep,
famously choked out by Darth Vader.
yes,
And he was also an Air Force general in the
yeah, in the circus scene when they were sitting in the, like,
Wow.
the front row there.
losing his shit for the circus.
Yep.
Yeah, he's had a couple of thankless roles.
Yeah. No, it is kind of embarrassing, like the way the way they think an American Air Force general would be like way above child level enthusiasm for a circus.
Do you
Man
think?
just loves the circus.
Do you think?
Circuses are cool. Don't get me wrong.
Do you think if kids in like the future, like in 20 or 30 years from now, will find this movie and for some reason watch it, that they'll be confused as
Yes.
to what a circus is?
Oh no, but they'll be confused.
I thought you were right there with me.
Hey, no, listen.
Yes.
Everyone who watches
No.
this movie at any point in the future will be confused. It's a confusing fucking movie.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, no, like to kids today, this movie has got to be confusing. East and West Germany, first of all, they're gonna be like, I thought Germany was one thing.
This movie is like so dated in every way.
And I do think you're right. I think like, I mean, I don't know when the last time I even heard of a like.
Well, the circus is gone. You
yeah.
know that, right? That they don't have it anymore.
They don't have Barnum
any
and Bailey?
They don't
It's
have
done.
any circuses anywhere.
No.
What?
Barnum and Bailey's circus, like the last one was like 2 or 3 years ago.
Well, I mean, that doesn't
No.
shock me because they weren't allowed to use a lot of the animals because a lot of the stuff they were doing was
yeah, it was
terrible.
just
yeah, that was
becoming
bad.
like that sort of thing.
But also, I mean, the circus is also about like clowns. You can always have clowns. People love clowns, right?
I don't know. Even in today's world, like clowns are becoming more and
Apparently.
more.
What about acrobats? Oh, they all went to Cirque du Soleil, probably.
After it,
That's
it's not
the
safe
modern
to be a
circus.
clown anymore.
That is
That's
the
the modern circus is vaguely erotic and equally confusing.
Oh, Cirque du Soleil?
yeah.
Oh, it is Cirque du Soleil. That part of it
Did
comes from
did you
circus.
did you just get that?
No, I knew it already.
Okay.
I just
All right.
I'm
But
trying to
also,
be
like,
informative for the listeners.
People used to go to the circus to like see things that they couldn't see anywhere else. Now you can just put on YouTube and like watch.
You guys
know.
missed what I said though.
What'd you say?
I said after it's not safe to be a clown anymore.
It was pretty safe for the clown. After it.
No,
it's-
because now they're demonized in the media.
yeah, but they've got those sharp teeth now. So
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
It.
I understand it, but
Yeah.
your joke's not funny. That's what I'm.
I'm so sorry.
it was a real struggle.
Let's talk about Octopussy herself.
Yeah,
I mean, when I
that's a cool bed. Did you see that bed?
Also, Magda's little Octopussy tattoo looks suspiciously like a rub-on tattoo you'd get in a Cracker Jack box or something.
Yes, it
it was
does.
like
Uh,
great job, effects people.
Did you ever go to CC's Pizza?
I
Have
don't
you ever
believe
been to
so.
one?
Is this
Oh, you know
important-
that you know
is this
those like
important for the
you know those
story?
machines that you put like the coins in that they're like red boxes with like a clear rectangle box top, and they have little like plastic
A
orbs in
vending
them.
machine with toys in it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I,
got it.
Yeah,
Yes.
like you put a
I'm
quarter
familiar
in.
with it.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
that kind of tattoo.
Yeah. Yes,
The
it
tattoos
is.
you get in that. yeah.
Exactly. That is exactly what kind of tattoo it is.
Yeah. So he's in bed with her, and he sees the tattoo on her back, and he says, "What's this?" And she rolls over and says, "Oh, that's my little Octopussy, right?" Or something.
Yes, that's exactly what she
that's my
says.
little Octopussy.
Yeah.
Clearly, a sexual innuendo referring to her vagina, right?
I didn't catch that.
I don't really.
Now wait, hear me out.
Yes, please continue.
Later on in the movie, when the character of Octopussy is brought into the fold, we learn that she got that name because it was a nickname her father called her.
Correct.
That's fucking weird, right?
Her
How
father
could
was
they-
really into octopuses, the animals.
So, but wait, this movie is establishing that the name Octopussy is a sexual reference. But then later on, it is introduced as a father-daughter
And she
nickname.
was very close with her dad, although she doesn't really mind that much that Bond caught him and forced him to commit suicide. So I'd say she has conflicting feelings about her father.
That's an interesting.
Well,
theory.
also the scene where they do have sex, she
Calls
says
him daddy
no.
all the time. No, she doesn't call him daddy. She does say no. We haven't had a Bond no means yes moment in a while, and I put that down. I was like,
Right,
oh
yeah.
no, we got another one of those.
This one's kind of.
She very clearly says no and doesn't appear to be into it, and he just kisses right through that, and it
Yeah,
happens.
I mean, there's a little bit of a change in her face.
She comes around, but
yeah, but it's pretty.
She definitely looks
questionable.
like she had some changes
Especially
to her
because the
face.
only other thing we know is that her attachment to him is because he allowed her father to kill himself rather than just killed her father.
and also seems like he might be her father's age. I don't know. It's there's definitely some
Yeah, there's some
questions about
daddy
that.
issues things going on with that.
There was also just on the weird, like the Bond misogynism, which I think has improved slightly with Roger Moore over the Connery versions. There is something.
It took a dip in this movie.
Yeah, it did. And there was
Yeah.
something. There's something really creepy now at his age of him flirting with these younger women. And like when he checks into the hotel, there's this pretty young Indian girl, probably in her early 20s, who checks him in and asks if he needs anything else. And he gives her like the eye and is like, "Well, I can't think of anything right now, but maybe
yeah.
later." Yeah, and then she like sort of giggles and walks out of the room. And every time a scene like that happens, I always think, yeah, of course she laughs when she's with him, but when she walks out of the room, is she like rolling her eyes or making like gagging faces to like her friends in the hallway or something? Like, it's,
I think in
Wait,
real
in real life
she
or
would
in the
be.
story?
yeah, I'm just talking about in the world of the story. It's
Oh, in the world
impossible-
of the story, she like is aroused and attracted.
Well,
to
that's what we're supposed to think, but I'm just saying, like, in the real life world of the story, are all these women who sort of giggle coquettishly at James Bond's flirtations and pervy statements of this man who's like 30 plus years older than them, are they actually like many women in real life, giggling politely and then walking out and being like, Jesus fucking Christ, this creep? I don't know. Food for thought.
If James Bond was real, he would have like extremely strong pheromones, so that if you got
James
close
Bond
to him,
was real, he would have so many sexual harassment lawsuits and paternity
And
suits and
STDs.
all sorts of STDs. He would be his penis would be riddled with disease. He would probably be in jail.
But in the world of James Bond, STDs don't happen as much, I guess, and people are attracted to each other in certain ways, and
Because they look like your dad. Who tragically had to kill himself.
that's weird.
Yeah. Yes, agree. It is weird.
Oh, but that one scene, the scene you're talking about, it had to be in there though, because that's like you're gonna shoot like most of a movie in India and like have like 50 beautiful women in it, and only one time are you gonna see a beautiful Indian woman for like 5 seconds.
Well, I had read that they originally wanted to cast Octopussy as an Indian actress, and at the time there were like 2 in Hollywood, and
They got a
So
Bollywood
scrapped
guy
that,
for
and
one
then
of
they
the-
and then they
yeah.
cast Maud Adams, and they were going to tan her up and dye her hair, and then they were like, "Yeah, no, let's."
They
just,
were gonna do that.
yeah,
I
and then
didn't-
they
I
were
didn't
like,
get-
"You
I
know
didn't-
what? Let's just make her."
do you know
not
why they
Indian."
cast her? Because at the time they didn't think Roger Moore was going to come back for this movie, so they started the casting sessions for a new Bond, and she was like the girl that they tested actors with, because she had been in a Bond movie already, and so they just brought her back, and she did it as a favor. But in her like rehearsing or like working with all these actors, I guess they were just like, yeah, she could do it.
Actors who included Timothy Dalton and James Brolin.
James Brolin, yeah.
And Timothy Dalton we know became Bond next, but
He was too young, right?
James. I don't know what the. I mean, I think he was one of the front runners. James Brolin surprisingly actually did extensive screen tests, and there's like pictures of him doing these. There's the screen tests exist, and that's hard to imagine. And
The special features has a whole segment about that.
Yeah, an American
Did you
James
did you
Bond.
watch that?
No, I didn't watch him.
Yeah, it has a whole. He has a sit down interview. He went to London for like weeks or something, and
Wow.
he was like stayed there. He was hanging out with Cubby Broccoli like all the time. He claims that he went to all of Cubby's clubs and favorite restaurants.
His clubbies?
Yeah,
Cubby's
Cubby's clubbies. Hey yo,
No,
James,
but
you
like I
coming
said
out?
in the Brilliant Cold Open, they brought Roger Moore back because they knew about the non-canon, Never Say Never Again that was coming out, and they were like, oh my God, Sean Connery is in this. How are we going to compete with this? And they thought it would behoove them to just bring back their
established guy rather than
guy.
take as few risks as possible, which I think was successful for them in the short term, but in the long term makes this movie kind of
Dull.
Yeah,
right,
because
because how cool would it have been to have an Indian actress as Octopus?
That would have been cool, and an American actor as James Bond. It would have been all crazy.
Actually,
Up was down,
but
black was
one
white.
thing is good. Like, I think that like if you did have an Indian actress play Octopussy, like Indian women in the United States and the UK would like always get called that. Like,
yeah, that would become a nickname for. Well, they did cast a lot of Indian actors or as Indian characters, which I think is good. I mean, God knows it's not anything considering where they shot near equal representation. But you did have a lot of
The guy's name is
speaking
Kamal
parts.
Khan, and he's
a French guy.
Yeah,
But,
what the hell?
Yeah. So not perfect, but
he was good at like I didn't like he was good at like making you hate him as a villain.
yeah, he was a good actor. He
was like, I don't like this guy. I want him to lose.
He was convincing, but he didn't seem that powerful. That was the thing. So many of them, like, Octopussy, everyone's afraid of double crossing her and everything, but then basically everyone but Bond does double cross her, and then even when she goes after her revenge, she ends up getting herself kidnapped. It's like, and Kamal Khan, his plans just go to shit. Every plan he makes just goes to shit eventually, and the Russian guy gets machine gunned to death for no reason, and it's just like these.
I do like that like the one I like that Bond has like a virtue in it. He's like, you can actually trust him.
Yeah, and including like even when I thought it was kind of cute when there's a nuclear weapon about to go off and kill millions of people, and there's a rude woman who won't get out of the phone booth so he can make a call. So he's like, screw it, I'll just take a car and drive rather than just yanking her out of the phone booth.
Yeah,
he's
not
not
the car. Yeah. The scene where he's in the clown makeup and it's like he's interrupting the circus to tell them that there's a bomb in the fucking thing is so bad.
He's like frantically running around like a maniac.
Tell them you know I'm a British agent.
Yeah, you never see Bond that unhinged before. I don't ever remember like seeing. First of all, he's wearing a clown outfit, which who even knows? There was 5 minutes left in that timer when he went into the clown trailer to put on his clown outfit, and then he puts on a full clown outfit with makeup. And
By the
still
time
gets
he
out there
gets-
with
by
like
the
4.5 minutes left on the timer.
By the time he gets to the general, it's gonna go off in 90 seconds.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absurd. And
I'm surprised
he is legitimately freaking out. Like Bond is like, you remember when Connery's diffusing nuclear bombs, he's just sort of like he sweats a little bit and he looks like he's concentrating a little bit and he's like, oh, this is a pickle. And then,
That's
Moore
why-
is like losing his shit.
That's why this scene is so bad because like he's losing his shit. He's in full clown makeup that makes him look
Baggy
like
pants,
Ronald
floppy
McBond.
shoes.
Ronald
Ronald
McBond.
McBond.
And on top of that, Maud Adams looks a little confused, which I guess she's supposed to. There's the Air Force generals who up to this point have been like giant children. And then complete mayhem for all the extras. And all the extras are doing like clown-like gags, like just little silly bullshit. Like he runs into another clown that's dressed the same. And they're like, oh, whoops, it's a different clown. And all this other shit. And like that is at the point, that scene is definitely at the point where they took the silliness too far. Like we've seen a lot of silly stuff, but that scene in a movie that like could have been better. That scene,
I mean, him hiding from
really doesn't do well.
from the checkpoint in a gorilla suit.
That's really bad.
That wasn't too far. But the circus scene.
Okay, let's get to that gorilla scene. So, first of all, how did he get in the gorilla
how's that
costume so
possible?
fast? And then how did he get
How
out
to
of
get out?
it
That's
even
more-
faster?
He gets out in seconds.
Yeah, right. So the gorilla costume is kept on some kind of like mannequin or stand that keeps the gorilla costume upright. So he just takes the place of that thing.
But where did the mannequin stand go?
Exactly. Where did it go? And then how does it get back into the gorilla suit when he evades being decapitated?
Like, what's the guy's name?
Gobinda.
Gobinda sees him, turns around to get his sword.
Just picks up the sword.
Yeah, he doesn't even turn around, right?
Yeah.
And he just like goes toward him and then slices the gorilla, and he's just not in
Bond is sneaking out the hatch of the top of the train. Yes,
it.
it's
It makes
absurd.
no sense.
It would take him.
It's okay. He hangs on to an airplane at the end of the movie, so
Which was rad.
yeah, but that also makes no sense.
Yeah.
The way
can we-
Gobinda dies is like so stupid too. The little
thought,
airplane antenna, he boing's it
Yeah.
into his face and he falls
But
off the
is
plane.
that stupid?
No.
Which is stupider, that or how Kamal Khan dies?
I have no objections to anything that happened at the end of that movie. That whole plane sequence was, for me, like the highlight of the entire film. I thought that was an awesome stunt. I thought it looked
Really?
cool.
That with the
It was.
cold
Okay,
open, I
yeah.
thought was a really cool stunt. They've got guys actually hanging on the outside of planes, like having long, protracted fights, like climbing all over this plane. It was nuts. It was crazy. I totally bought it, and I didn't even mind the antenna flicking in the face. Although, what I really wanted to happen was when Kamal Khan tells Govinda, get out there and get him. And Govinda looks at him like, are you out of your goddamn mind? And then he gets out there. I thought he should have been like, why don't you get out there and get him, boss? I got to tell you, this is where I draw the line.
Doesn't he call him
I
your
don't even get
excellency?
dental. I'm staying in the damn
Excellence.
plane.
Just
Oh,
excellence.
he just calls him excellence? Yeah, it's some kind of caste system thing. He's like a
Yeah.
noble, and
Yeah,
Govinda's
I think
not.
at some point Govinda just has to be like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get scorned for this, but I'm
What
not
was,
getting out
what
of the
was
damn plane.
Govinda's motivation? Like, why was he into the jewel thieving? Why was he into the nuclear bombing?
I don't know. And I've got another question. Early on, he seems to be teaming up with a car, a mini car full of Indian ninjas. What was up with those? Do they actually have Indian ninjas? Because
I don't know. What
and
was up with the whole scene where
what
this
was up
with
with
the
their
sword
weapons?
swallower and the guy laying on the nails?
that was
and
just
the-
like, hey, here's what people know of India from Bugs
Yeah.
Bunny cartoons.
Every
Let's hit
Indian
all these
stereotype.
points. Yeah.
Exactly.
There's
we're
a
gonna try
bed
to
of
get
nails,
every
there's a
Indian
sword
stereotype
swallower.
into like a 10 square meter area.
Walking
Yeah.
on hot coals.
Yeah, walking on hot coals, juggling fire, whatever. It was all that stuff. But I'm just baffled by the Indian ninjas who have like, it looks like Klingon weaponry, of like just
Oh,
crazy.
that part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're in the car.
Oh
and
yeah,
they-
when he
and
jumps
the guy-
on him and he's got that
Klingon.
VJ fights
yeah.
him with a tennis racket.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, that's
it's
what
nuts.
VJ fights with a tennis racket because he's a tennis pro in real life.
So stupid.
Okay, speaking of throwing every cliche in the book, what is
That's so ridiculous. Think about that though. This guy was a tennis player. We're gonna have him fight with a tennis racket for
the when Bond escapes from Kamal Khan's lair and is chased into the jungle, and he's running through basically the jungle from Pitfall, where it's like within the maybe 100 yards, he's attacked by a giant spider, a tiger, a leech, an alligator, and a snake. Like, how much crazy shit can go on in this very tight? Like, he's not running very far. It's tiny, and also he gets attacked by a tiger,
And he just says, "Sit."
says, sit, and the tiger sits and runs away. It's like there was like a
Right,
moment
yeah.
of real danger there, and it's just like it's diffused by
If
some
you,
of the stupidest thing
if you just look the
possible.
tiger right in the eyes and you say sit and you emphasize the T, then you're safe.
Yeah, here's some other reasons that.
But
Jungle
wait,
Chase
wait,
is
but
awful.
that scene's really bad, but it has one of my favorite all-time Bond jokes in it. When
you
he
say
fa-
the Tarzan yell.
No, that's the worst. That's one of the worst. And within a few seconds, it has one of the worst Bond jokes and one of the best Bond jokes. Like, to me,
What's the
the
best?
Tarzan thing is awful. Like they have him do the Tarzan yell for no reason. They just put it into the sound, which
as he
was
swings
stupid.
from vine to vine, which
Yeah.
is also
Which was a good stunt. The stunt guy who was swinging from vine to vine did a good job.
yeah. It's
But
just
to have
idiotic.
that sound effect is demeaning. It's demeaning.
What was the good joke? I'm curious because I
Yeah,
can
I
tell
wanna
you.
know what
I
it
got
is.
about 8 more reasons why this sequence is terrible.
So when
but-
he doesn't get killed, he sees a riverboat, and it's a tour group from America, and it's like a Moose Lodge tour group, and he swims out to the boat, and there's obviously people trying to chase him and murder him,
Oh, right.
and like hunting him like he's the most dangerous game, and he gets in the boat.
and they say, "Are
and
you
she's
from
like,
our tour?"
Yeah, are you from our tour? And he's like, no, ma'am, I'm with the economy tour.
Yeah, that's all right. That's a decent joke.
It's so
That's a
funny.
decent joke. He also, during this chase, there's like 40 guys with rifles hunting him.
Right.
And he sneaks into the middle of them to unhook one guy's
How?
elephant saddle and then somehow runs away despite the fact that they all see him now and they're all shooting their guns at him. And then as he's running away, he goes through some water and he gets a leech on his chest and he pauses in the middle of this chase to burn the leech off his chest with a lighter. It is all so stupid. And then at the end,
The lighter works after he's been in the water.
In the
after,
water, yeah.
after he escapes from all these things to get away from Kamal Khan and his men, his next move is to go to Octopussy's house, where, unbeknownst to him, was exactly where they were going to take him. So, like, this entire sequence is not just.
I don't think they were gonna take him there. I think they were told to take him there by Octopussy, but they.
Well, we don't know if they were going to or not
But
because.
then the Russian guy comes, and I think after the Russian guy comes, they're like, we should just kill him.
Did they say that? I don't remember them saying
I think
that.
they say something like that.
I mean, clearly Kamal Khan wanted to kill him because then he proceeds to
I get
try
the
to
impression
kill him even
that-
after he's at Octopussy's house. But
right. I get the impression that Kamal Khan's plan is always just to kill him. Like even
All right.
like he.
this may be one of those
because
things
he
where
does
where
listen
you're
to
reading between
Octop.
the lines of the text, but because I don't remember them saying that.
Well,
The last thing we
by
heard
the
was
end,
that
by the end, we know he was working with Octopussy, but he didn't really trust her or care about her.
right.
Wait.
So that's my basis.
I just thought of something.
What?
Well, the first thing I want to say is like that elephant unbuckling scene is directed in the same way that like the gorilla scene is directed, where they intentionally like don't show where things
We don't know
are.
the
We don't know the
geography.
geography
Yeah.
Right.
exactly. So it like doesn't. It intentionally doesn't make sense so that you just like buy it.
right.
My other thing
there's quite a few little action sequence things that they do like that in this
Yeah.
one.
yeah.
It's lazy.
Yeah. But anyway, I thought of who gives the worst performance in this movie, and it's not Magda.
Okay.
It is another girl, though.
Can we just call Magda Fivehead from now on?
Five head?
I really feel like she's got a.
Oh, five head. I
she's got
got
a
dare
it.
Fivehead.
I thought she was pretty cute.
Yeah, she's nice looking.
You know, she is a very. Well, she's kind of odd looking, actually. She's pretty
She's
in
very
an odd
skinny.
looking way.
I like the
she
costumes
has
they
a
put her
five head.
into, like the sparkly,
one
like
that she
Zatanna
escapes.
type thing. Oh no, the escape
So the
costume.
escape dress is a good one too.
Yeah.
Wait, is she the one that Bond makes another great joke that I thought worked is like something about he remember faces and he's like and figures, right?
Yeah.
But they're talking about numbers, so
Yeah.
it works on a double. Oh,
Yeah,
so good.
That was a good one. like that
Anyway, the worst performance. Colin, I'm curious to see what you think about this.
Yeah.
The Moneypenny scene.
Oh, what do you mean? Like Moneypenny's performance or the
No,
other girl?
the new girl.
yeah, she was terrible.
Penelope Smallbone.
Of course, she was terrible. that was her name.
Smallbone, that's right.
her name.
Penelope Smallbone. Also, who the fuck is Penelope Smallbone? Why is Penelope Smallbone?
She never
What
comes
is
back.
Penelope Smallbone? Like what was it called there? I was like thinking, are they phasing out Moneypenny because she's too old? Are they going to replace her?
I think that's what they made.
Yeah, they were preparing to do that. If they were preparing for that eventuality.
Which would be a terrible idea if Roger Moore continued to play James Bond, because then he'd be
Right.
flirting with a teenager when he's in his 80s. Or
Which he
whatever.
does flirt with her.
Yes. Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Of
She
course he
looked
does.
very young and she looked very unprepared for this role.
Role.
She looked like maybe she was unaware that they were filming a movie.
I'm here for the assistant job.
They just hired a real girl. She was like, why do you think keep on saying the same things over and over
We're
again?
gonna call you Smallbone for the purposes of this interview. Okay.
But I understand all these like names that they give the girls in these movies. Octopussy being a huge one, but like I don't understand Smallbone. I don't understand.
Well, apparently, in that scene, Moneypenny occasionally would flub her line and call her Smallbush.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the that made more sense, and it
That's
was actually a
hilarious.
much funnier name. But
Oh man, that's fun.
Moneypenny, looking good in this one.
oh God! You know what? At least she's aging with Moore. It's like
Oh
it's like
my
Grandma and Grandpa
God.
Bond now.
She like smiles at one point, and you could see like her like old people teeth. Like,
Or
how they like
the years of smoking.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God.
Seriously.
She's like 90.
Yeah.
How dare you?
What is her last movie? Does she do the next one and that's
Yeah,
it?
she does the next one, and I think that's it.
Oh man.
Because I know they replace her for Living Daylights.
Yeah.
Her replacement in Living Daylights is,
Pretty hot, right?
we
Is it the
we
one-
haven't
Oh,
we haven't
sorry.
seen that movie yet.
Is it
Yeah,
the
we
one
don't
with
know
the big
anything about
glasses?
Yeah, she has big ass glasses.
Yeah, I like
Do we
that
have any fun gadgets in this one? We have the mini jet, obviously.
That was probably the coolest. We have a lot of gadgets
The mini
that are
jet's
like
cool.
introduced for the soul, like for the plot. Like
The
here's
homing device and the acid pen.
the acid pen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the acid pen. Oh, and then of course we have the
Oh, the
most
Q
sexist-
scene is really
we have-
bad. Yeah,
we
and
have
it's
the
the
most
worst
sexist scene
sexism,
in
yeah.
this entire movie. In a movie where he actually takes no as yes, we have a scene that's even worse
Oh
than
my
that.
God, I
when just
forgot
like a
about this.
14-year-old
Yeah.
boy, he sees Q's got a wristwatch that has an LCD monitor in it.
A liquid crystal.
Liquid crystal display, Bond. Don't touch it. And they're testing it out with a live video feed with a video camera. And so of course Bond turns the camera around towards a secretary that's sitting there doing her work, minding her own business, and zooms it in on her boobs repeatedly.
Her cleavage.
Yeah.
like a child would.
Crash zoom right to the
just
to the
repeatedly
cleave.
zooming in and out on her boobs.
And he even says to Bond, he's like, you
Yeah, he says like this is juvenile or something like
adolescent.
that. Yeah. Adolescent, yeah. Yeah, but that whole scene sucks. I mean, like
it is a
you
shit
get the
scene.
2 little gadgets he needs, but like every other Q scene I can think of is better than that one.
even the secondary like inventions that they,
Yeah.
like as they walk through the lab, they show you other stuff.
Yeah, these
one
ones
of
were
them
kinda
is
lame.
like a rope that ascends into the sky, and
Yep.
like if
Yeah.
you were to hold on to it, it'll stay sturdy enough that you can go to like a second story or something.
doesn't work.
But it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Then the next thing is like,
Oh yeah, and it
a
has another
door.
bad joke. Trouble keeping it up, Q.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Classic. That actually isn't that bad.
That's pretty good.
You like that one? I
That,
thought
that
was horrible.
I think that's the whole setup of the rope is just to make that
That's
joke.
just to make that
but
joke, totally.
It's worth it. Especially because Q is like legitimately even older than Bond is at this point. Like they're both in the hardcore Viagra club. But,
Oh my god!
But again,
this
they're
is
late.
just a movie of
like old men
elderly people.
joking about impotence.
But they're laying it on so thick with the jokes. But yeah, it's that, and then like what, a door that crushes you if you like knock on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, lame.
And that's
Very
it.
lame.
And then there's one woman in the background who's like, got a low cut shirt on, and then he's like, video camera zooms on her, and that's like the whole scene basically. It's like, come on.
Yep.
The VJ guy looked really into it though.
Oh,
When,
speaking.
sorry, were you gonna say when VJ gives him a massage?
also,
Why
very
is he giving
weird.
him a massage?
And this is like a colleague. It's like this isn't actually your servant.
I'm like,
This is
maybe this is customary in India. I have no idea.
It's just that the guy who plays VJ just looks so into being there in every scene. He's just so
I
happy
was
to be in that
generally
movie.
saddened when he got killed.
He had to be pumped. He was definitely one of those, like, he just was plucked from nowhere to be in this movie, and he did a good job and probably
Yeah.
launched his a little bit of a career. I know he's a tennis broadcaster for a while.
I mean, he probably did like
he probably got
a
other
few
roles.
commercials.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
He probably got some benefit out of this.
that's a pretty dope career for like. I mean, if you don't have the expectation to like win an Oscar or something, that's a really fucking dope career.
Yep.
He went on to work for MTV, I think, right?
I can't believe you would say that.
No, that's good stuff. Now, my question is, how long were you waiting to drop that one?
Why are you laughing, Colin? I don't
Oh,
understand.
VJ. My favorite was always Kennedy. There's so
I feel like no one listening will laugh as hard as I just laughed.
So I've got a question. Serious question. What did you think of Robert Brown as the new M?
He's like
Totally M-like.
he's okay. He's not as good as the old guy because the old guy is just like he's got that like kind of like I'm like kind of pissed that like Bond is like this kind of vibe. But like he still kind of likes it, right?
Mm-hmm.
This guy is like, I'm just like kind of serious, but Bond's cool.
No, I thought he caught his like being feigning disapproval, but still you could tell that he sort of was a little amused by Bond, even though he knew he couldn't. be. I
Maybe
thought
the
he
other guy
he
was
had that
just
kind of
better
that
at it.
paternal
I don't know.
air. I
Yeah.
thought for his first time out, I liked it.
Now, I didn't quite catch this. Are they playing it off that he is the same M? Or do you think he's M's replacement, also called M?
They
Is it a-
don't explicate it. I don't think
It's just kind of...
It's just kind of what it is. I think until what's her name, Judi Dench took over, I don't think there was any way to recognize whether he was supposed to be like
Whether that was his title or
yeah,
his
and then
name.
they sort of. I guess retroactively, because every M since then has been M, whether it's the same person or not, and now with the Daniel Craig movies, they've sort of introduced the idea that it's a succession of people. So I guess you could go backwards and say, okay, a new M is a new M, even though they're all called M.
I think he calls her in like in GoldenEye or something. I think he calls her like, so you're the new M or something like that.
Right.
I think they established it as early as the 90s that M is like a
Right.
title rather than a name.
Yeah, right. Although I don't think was she in GoldenEye? She wasn't until later. Was
Oh
she?
no, she was in the next one after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, she was in
One of-
GoldenEye.
one
She
of
is in
the-
GoldenEye?
is she?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She's introduced in that one.
Yeah.
But these are future movies that haven't
That
happened. We don't know
anything
what we're
about.
talking about.
Right.
Yes. No idea. I like the auction scene too. I thought that was like a classic Bond scene.
It's really good.
He's
but
got
like,
no idea what's going on, so he just jumps in and starts fucking things up.
Yeah. It's really good, but like in front of 100 people, you really think that like no one noticed that he switched them.
And he did it in such an obvious way. He's like, "Let me see this," and hold it behind my book for a second.
I've got my pamphlet, my the program, right?
He switches the counterfeit Fabergé egg for the real one by hiding it behind his program for a second in plain view of everybody, and nobody has any questions.
I mean, he's pretty smooth about it, but he's very obvious about the fact that instead of going over the program, he slides it under the program.
Yeah.
All right, should we rank this thing? Are we done?
If you want to? I don't know.
What else is there
I
to
probably
talk
got
about?
more. Let's talk about just the Octopussy's circus army invading Kamal Khan's palace, which is campy even by Bond standards.
So like this one has that problem of like the end is too long. And basically, starting
this episode
from,
or this movie?
You're the one who wanted to keep going. Matt's trying to quit.
Never quit.
No quitters. Anyways, but like, so from the point where he finds out that there's a nuclear bomb, he's basically on the run, being chased around the whole time, and then that like sort of action doesn't really stop for like basically a whole nother hour because he has to chase the bomb. He has to get to the circus. He has to defuse the bomb, but then the movie doesn't end. That's a problem. Like that's clearly like a climactic moment.
Yeah,
them defusing the bomb at the circus.
Nuclear weapon with seconds left to go would be the climax of the movie.
But like, but they think that they need more action, so they're going to bring in the entire circus as a gang to raid the palace of Kamal Khan.
If this were any other movie, this would be like Gymkhana level cheesy bad.
Yeah, and that's not the end of it because Khan gets in an airplane and there's a whole nother chase.
Don't forget how the invasion of the palace ends with Bond and Q flying in a hot air balloon with the Union Jack on the side of it,
right? Yeah,
which is like the corny cherry on top of the cheese sundae.
How would that be strategically advantaged? Like, what is the strategic advantage of coming in a hot air balloon?
There's no rational reason
for anything.
Yes, it's terrible. And then they go, and don't forget also, he's got the banister slide down the railing, which is also like Bond, as he's escaping from the palace, decides he's going to slide down a banister and shoot with a machine gun and shoot the other bad guys who have machine guns as they're shooting at him, which is A, awful, and B, at the end of the banister, it's got one of those little like knobs on it, and he, rather than get his balls crushed, he shoots the thing off. And
but
it's like,
that would still shred your nuts into like 20 pieces.
Yeah.
But this is like a gag from like Spy Hard or Austin Powers.
Yeah.
This is like so far beneath what a Bond movie should be doing. It's so bad.
But it was bad. It was really bad.
But at
it
that
did
point,
look fucking cool.
But at that point, the end is just getting too long with too much ridiculous stuff. It's like,
and then
okay,
even when
like
they get into this
the climax already happened. We saved the day.
Badass airplane thing that happens, which is actually pretty cool. It's like you're already exhausted, and you're like, okay, can we just end this fucking movie already?
Yeah,
and speaking of that,
also, why did they need the whole circus gang to invade Kamal Khan's? Like, it was never established that Kamal Khan has an army. He's just like an underboss with another palace. So he has like 5 guys there.
But once again, it's just lazy writing and lazy story construction where they're like, well, we always end these things with an invasion on some fortress,
action,
so let's just make a Kamal Khan fortress with an army.
And lastly, let's just talk about Kamal Khan's death. Like, okay, so Bond throws the one guy off the plane. He pulls out the cords, the wiring for the engine, right?
Yep.
But a plane can still fly with one engine,
Yeah,
right?
or at least
for a little while.
Coast.
Yeah, you could probably land it.
Yeah.
Well,
it
Kamal
burns more
Khan
gas.
does kind of land it. He just can't stop it when he does. They sort of crash land, and then they get to the edge of a cliff, and he's
Right.
forced
So
to try
Bond
to
and
fly again.
Octopussy jump out when they they're like close enough to land that if they jumped out, they wouldn't die.
They jump out of a plane that is going too fast for the plane to stop. So a plane that's moving pretty fast on uneven ground, and they jump out and survive.
And then
without a
he
scratch
keeps
on them.
flying.
Yeah.
And just crashes into a mountain for some reason.
Right.
Yep.
It felt to me like he just could have kept gliding down and eventually
Probably.
It felt to
landed.
me like the movie could have ended like 30 minutes before that.
Yes, true.
Like, all right, I would have been more satisfied if Bond like did something to the controls or like unbeknownst to
Right,
yeah.
Kamal Khan or something, and he thinks he's gonna get away, ha ha ha, and then he like pulls on the thing
Or just
and
like
it pops off or
clubbed
something.
him in the back of the head and jumped out of
Yeah,
the plane. Anything.
or shot
him,
Something.
or
Something.
something,
Yeah,
yeah.
just shoot him.
Any of those
Shoot him
things.
and run.
Do you think, you know how in Austin Powers he says like that he's afraid of carnies? Do you think that like this influenced that joke?
My God, we didn't even talk about Mishka and Grishka, the knife throwing twins, who have the worst, funniest hair I've ever seen.
So
it looks like the giant SNL wigs with our too high on their heads. Like Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan would play these guys in my shot-for-shot remake of this movie.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's pretty amazing.
And their little outfits. I also like that Bond changes into one of their outfits, and by the time he's like on the Air Force base, everyone is looking for him, and they're like, "We gotta find the guy in the red shirt."
And at least half the people in the circus are wearing red shirts.
Yeah.
Or not to mention that Mishka and Grishka are like 5 feet tall,
Right.
And he changes into his costume,
Yeah.
and it like fits him perfectly. Yeah.
Also, they're bad at throwing knives.
Yeah, they are. Really
They're good at throwing knives accurately. They're bad at deciding where to throw the knives. He'd rather like pin Bond's clothes to the door than actually just throw a knife at a vital organ. And then when he finally gets him pinned to the door, he charges at him with a knife. You're good at throwing the knife. The advantage is you get to throw it from far away.
Yeah, that's a stupid move.
So not as bad as Gobinda, who seemed like a tough guy, but then somehow can't beat an old man who's unarmed when he's got a sword, you know? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, some of the action in this was very like.
Well, I thought the
limited.
train stuff
Some
was
of it's
cool.
very,
The train-
very
when
good,
the train
and
hits
some
the-
of it's very, very bad.
When the train
you know?
hits the car,
It's
I thought that was
mixed
a cool
bag.
stunt when he's climbing on the train from the
That's
car. and then the
cool,
other-
yeah.
when the train or when the car goes flying off the rails and lands on a boat in the water, that was cool.
I mean, my
Yeah.
favorite parts of I thought that was awesome. My favorite parts of this were a lot of the action scenes, the set pieces and stuff like that.
don't they have a fight on top of a train too?
Yep,
A little
they
bit,
fight on top of
yeah.
the train. And that's pretty good too.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's elements of this that are okay, and oddly enough, they tend to be like I think some of the action set pieces, although some of them were also awful. But
This one came close to being good. Like on paper, they had a lot of what they needed.
I'll tell you, I was excited
I
at the
think.
beginning because it had a great cold open. I enjoyed the auction scene. I was
Yeah,
like,
the first hour is like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
You know, like
yeah,
I'm
no,
into
definitely.
this.
I was thinking this was going to be another surprisingly good one.
At least the first 30 minutes. You're like,
Yeah,
I'm into this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
For
agree
the
with
first
that.
30, 40 minutes, I thought, oh my God, it's another one that sneaks up on me. It's another Roger Moore classic.
What did you
But
guys?
instead, it was a Roger
Oh, here's
Moore
another
classic.
ridiculous action part that was directed poorly on purpose. Bond is fighting a guy, and they both fall into the water, and a alligator comes up and starts writhing around, like
Right.
killing
Oh.
one of them, and then
He sneaks into his alligator suit, which he already had planted there.
somehow, yeah.
Which was, I'm sorry, like, I don't understand exactly what's so funny about it, but to me, him rolling up in the alligator suit when he opens it up and it has like a little windshield in its mouth
Yeah.
is like, makes
What
me
was the other
laugh
one? What
every
was the Connery
time.
one where he had like a duck on his head?
The alligator one is super funny and like unexplainable how funny it is.
Yeah, but it's also unexplainable how he got back into that suit and killed the guy without anybody seeing it and why the suit was there. It's another thing of like they're cheating. They're basically taking something that like usually it's not these movies operate from a place of realism. It's that you always understand how in the world of the movie something is possible, and this one sort of plays fast and loose with geography and timing and just everything. So it feels like you're getting cheated all the time.
Yeah.
Also, the plot you never know what's supposed
sure.
to happen, so you never
Yeah.
know what you're supposed to be looking for or what you're supposed to be keeping up for.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
it's just a really sloppily made movie, which
Yeah,
should we just jump into
agree.
it here?
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Shall I go first?
I agree.
Yeah, you can go first.
You can go
All right.
first.
Well, the Chinese translation of the title of this movie is 007 Averts the Plot. That's seriously what it's called. And I think that's pretty spot on. It is such a mess. It's even the fun things that worked can't save it. And that's like mostly the action set pieces, which we've talked about. It is so bad in all the usual Roger Moore extra cheese kind of ways, and then some. And it's not the worst one we've seen, I don't think, but it's pretty damn close. So I gave it a 002.
Yeah, wow.
Damn.
So
I mean,
hard hitting.
I really
when
there
you
was-
don't like it, you don't like it.
There was stuff that I enjoyed about this, and I feel like if you watch the first 45 minutes and then just turn it off there and never watch the rest of it, you would probably think I'm insane. And maybe that's the best way to watch it. Just do that. That's my
but, like,
recommendation.
you couldn't do that because you'd be dying to see the end.
License
and
to
then you
watch
realize,
the first
oh,
45
fuck.
minutes and then don't ruin it for yourself. Just go out and get some sun or something.
Okay.
All right, I'll go. So, I mean, I will say this, that in talking about it with you guys here now, it seems like I might have disliked it on the level that you guys did, but I actually found
I haven't given
myself... Well,
Okay.
true. Maybe, Harris, I meant. I found in watching it, while I was, unsure of the plot, I was gripped enough to like stay with it and see if my guesses were true, and they were. And I kind of, I knew what was going on. Sure, I thought, the action was pretty cool. I liked the plot. Or the setup of the plot, I should say, in the beginning with the Russian actor. I liked the cold open. Hated the song. I liked the girls. I liked the villains, even though I thought maybe the casting could have been better. And like for the amount of silly things, it wasn't like it's a weird thing because like he's dressed like a clown, but he doesn't like. I feel like if this were Moonraker and he was dressed like a clown, they would have him like suddenly the spotlight would hit him and he would have to like put on a show for the kids or something, and like in order to like.
That's like kind of what happens though.
Not really. I mean,
except he's trying to defuse a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, I feel like he's dressed like a clown, but he's trying to defuse a bomb. He's not like suddenly thrust into like a silly situation.
But like in that scene, the kids think he's doing silly things for them to laugh at, and I think that's how they like.
So does the general, who is also a big kid.
Whatever. It could be worse.
He just loves the circus.
I don't know. My point is like clearly in dissecting this movie with you guys, this movie is a lesser Bond film, but in the moment, I think I'm gonna give it a 4. 004.
Okay.
Yeah.
After that, all that buildup, that's lower than I thought.
No,
Yeah.
that's like a 9.
Well, I'm comparing it to.
Okay, why did you think that? I mean, like, I knew he was gonna.
I'm
be
comparing
like,
it to other movies. Like I
Right.
gave Man with the Golden Gun a 5. I think this is
It's worse.
worse than
It's
that.
worse.
Yeah. I gave From Russia with Love a 4.
Ouch.
Yeah, I feel like it's on the same level as that in terms
Ooh.
of watchability for
Watch
me.
From Russia with Love again. I think in
Yeah.
retrospect, you'll regret that 4.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I remember like watching this one when I was younger, like watching it for the first time. I remember by the time you get to like him in the clown makeup, just seeing James Bond as a clown, like breaking my heart. Like I was just like, he looks so stupid right now. But watching it today, it was like not so bad. I wasn't triggered. But yeah, like as much as this movie is not a good movie, there's some cool things about it that really add to like the lore of James Bond. Like this movie is good on paper. I feel like I've already said that. And it has some interesting things that add to like if you're talking about like like if you're talking about James Bond and like you're extrapolating a bunch of stuff from all the stories of like all the movies, this one has some cool things that add into it. You know what I mean? So I like that.
I mean, they all do, kind of.
Well, yeah, because
Because they're all James Bond movies.
Well, like what
Right.
things are you talking about specifically?
I think it adds something like we talked about we've seen him with a lot of the same types of women before. We've talked about that, like in the '60s ones, like for 3 movies there, all the women characters were the same. It's like he's gonna have sex with the blonde and she's gonna be the good one, and she's gonna have sex with the redhead and she's gonna be the bad one. You know what I mean? Some of the '60s ones were like pretty much that every time, right? And still, like we've talked about, like they're slowly getting diversity, right?
Very slowly.
But they don't have backstories. You know what I mean? Some of the women are just like, okay, this is a woman and she's in the movie and she wants to have sex with James Bond. Like that's her backstory.
Her whole life, she's clamored for one man.
Right. This woman has an interesting story, although they didn't handle it well. Like it's not. When you watch the movie, you still are like, okay, this is a woman who was hired to be like the girl that James Bond has sex with or whatever. But like the way it's written, she has a backstory, and it's interesting and it's different than the other ones. We see him go to India when I would think James Bond, you would have to see him in India at some point. It's a classic like
Location.
British,
Yeah,
with
it makes sense.
right? Some other and just other little things like that you can take away. Like they're like, okay, he's fought all kinds of very interesting villains and like stuff like that. And one time there was like a guy who was like really into tanks and he just wanted to fuck shit up, and Bond thwarted him too because the circus isn't how you get it done.
Yeah, the circus is no way to start a war.
The circus is no way to start a war. The general knew it. Bond knew it. I digress. So, like, for that, I appreciate this movie. And honestly, in the first half hour to hour, it is like, this is going to be fucking cool. It does fall off the rails. It goes in a movie with trains, it goes off the rails.
Literally, yeah.
It adds a bunch of stuff to the way the Bond movies treat the Cold War. It's very like it has this. The Cold War is essential to this plot. So with all of those things, I do like some things about it. It's not a good movie though. So I was gonna give it like maybe a 6, but maybe I'll give it a 5 now because you guys are really.
Oh my god!
Don't let us bring you down.
I
Go with your gut.
preemptively gave it the 002 when I originally was going to give it a 003 just because I was getting a sense that you guys are rated too high. But now you've rated it pleasantly low.
But I rate all of them like pretty much too high. The worst one I gave was the On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and this one, I mean, yeah, I think I should rate it lower, but. I don't know what I like about it, but I like something about it. Probably a 5. What did I give? What's like the lower ones than 5 that I've done?
From Russia with Love, you gave a 4.
Oh,
On Her Majesty's Secret Service, you gave a 2.
yeah. So
Ouch.
this
And
one's like
that's it.
yeah. This one's like in the category with those. So
Yeah.
maybe it should have a 4, but we'll give it a 5 just because.
Is this-
You can balance out my 3 that I turned into a 2 at the last minute.
exactly? Yeah.
Are we claiming this as Roger Moore's worst movie thus far?
I mean, I think it's Moonraker, but clearly
You're wrong.
I'm outvoted on that one. Yeah,
You're
and
so
honestly,
wrong.
honestly, that's probably true. This is worse than Moonraker.
Honestly, and like without the scene where he's like in the clown makeup and like it's just getting too silly, like I just that scene breaks the movie for me. Like,
yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
It goes
there's a
really
lot to
good,
hate
and
about
then it
this.
teeters on being bad. Like it peaks early, and then it teeters on being bad, and then it just breaks right when you.
Yeah,
Right,
there's a lot to hate about this
mean,
movie,
yeah.
but that is the low point. It's an all-time low.
If
for this movie.
I spend time considering like what kind of clown makeup could they have put him in to make it like better? You know what I mean? Like maybe it was just like that he should have had like the circly mouth instead of like
The
long
triangle.
yeah, or the
John
triangle
Wayne
eyes
Gacy
or whatever. Yeah.
clown makeup.
I mean, there's so many kinds of clown makeup. We could do a whole podcast about that.
Yeah.
Which reminds me about our new podcast, Clowns, with Matt Cullen and Harris. Clowning around.
Clown.
So we're saying License to Watch, I assume, is revoked. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I would let someone watch it.
If someone who had never watched James Bond films came up to you and was like, I'm thinking about starting with Octopussy, you would say, sure, go ahead.
I would slap them in the face.
Nah, I'd probably say no.
I would suggest they watch Jim Cotta.
You don't think that they would immediately be turned off by the series if they started with this one?
I think somebody. I want to do that. I want somebody who's never watched a James Bond film to watch this movie first, and then just be like, "What do you think of James Bond now?" And just watch them be like, "I can't believe people are still watching this shit. What is going on?"
That'd be really fascinating.
Is the
I'd
world
also
on
like
crack?
I'd also like to see like somehow this movie as not a James Bond movie. Like everything's the same, but just like don't tell them it's James Bond.
That's what I'm saying. I
You
think
know what
like
I
if,
mean?
if it was on that level, it would be something that like people would be mocking to this day, rather than being in box sets and collections and thought of as some kind of part of a classic thing.
I think it would be a
people
cult classic
would
as a
talk
film
about-
to make fun of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly. It's that bad where I think that you could get a lot of mileage out of watching this just to make jokes.
But it's got such great action and stunts, and it's like it's really interesting that they would make this
that
movie.
they were intentionally
right?
trying
Yeah.
to make something good, and it turned out like this.
I
Right,
guess,
right. If you didn't know it was a James Bond movie and you saw, you'd be like, it's really interesting that they tried to make this a movie.
I can't believe they spent 28.
Right?
I can't believe they spent $28 million on
Right,
this.
exactly.
Say what you will about this
1983
movie,
money.
but it's not boring.
That's
wasn't-
true.
Right.
It wasn't a boring one.
Yeah, it's
It's long.
it's
not
long. It's
boring.
too
It's
long,
not-
and
yeah.
that can become boring.
Yeah.
But
There have been more boring. I mean, I thought Thunderball was way more boring than this. So this
Yeah,
isn't even
probably,
this.
yeah.
This might be the worst James Bond movie, but it's definitely not the boringest.
I think boredom is probably like the thing you want least in a James Bond movie. They can be,
Yes.
there have been long ones and there will be long ones.
That's true.
But as long as they're filled with action and
Boobs.
I think
hints
that's
of
where
boobs. Yeah.
I think that's where the split on from Russia with Love was for us, because like
I wasn't
the
as bored
action.
by it as
Yeah,
you
the
guys
action
were.
still
Yeah.
got. Yeah, Harris still liked the action a lot, and we were more. I don't know.
Well, I was just thinking it might be interesting to revisit some of these movies at a later date, maybe the ones that we're split on. And you know what? We might have the time because in the news recently, they have announced the new director of Bond 25 is Cary Fukunaga.
Right.
And they pushed the date, which screws up the timing of our podcast with this once a month business. They pushed it 3 additional months. So now we have time for 3 filler episodes
Right.
in the future.
We will have stuff.
Yeah. So look
yeah, maybe
forward
we
to
should do that. We should. One of them should be like the rehashing of the
Most
worst,
contested.
best and worst, or
Yeah.
most contested. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's it. Right?
Yeah.
We've said everything.
That is it.
All right. Thanks
just
for
all-
listening. Please rate, review, and subscribe. We'll be back next month with the first non-canon Bond. Never say never, again.
Never say never again. Never.
Sing us
never
out,
say
Colin.
never again. Never.
Chris, did you watch this movie?
You didn't watch it.
He said no. He doesn't.
Bye. Thanks for listening.